December 1944. General George S. Patton Jr. was ubiquitous in his jeep at the muddy front as the Third Army advanced through frozen Luxembourg. Yet a cold morning near Nancy, France, brought forth an incident unconnected to the Germans. On a muddy track between supply lines, a white first lieutenant confronted a black second lieutenant. The white officer declined to salute. He turned his shoulder and walked on. The event was reported. Patton was always informed of such matters. The ensuing events defied any field manual. It wasn't part of any battle plan. Patton's immediate, blunt, and unexpected actions in the following minutes spread through the Third Army faster than any operational dispatch. The news reached foxhole-bound soldiers unfamiliar with Patton. It also reached supply depots, field hospitals, and regimental headquarters. It entered history because Patton then gave no speech. He convened no hearing. He filed no report with the Inspector General. He enforced the United States Army Uniform Code with the same ferocity he reserved for Rommel's ghost. And he did so before witnesses. The question isn't merely what he did. The question is why it held such significance for so many men in a war ostensibly fought for freedom. To grasp Patton's actions, one must comprehend the 1944 world of the black soldier. The U.S. Army's segregation was not informal or habitual. It was officially, legally, and structurally enforced. African American soldiers were assigned to distinct units, trained in separate facilities, and housed in segregated barracks. Upon deployment, they were treated as a distinct and separate group. Internal Army studies distributed within the War Department described black troops with clinical dismissive terms, presuming their inferiority even before combat. The 761st Tank Battalion, dubbed the Black Panthers, was established in April 1942 at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. Their training period spanned 2 years. The 761st remained idle while white armor units completed training and deployed to North Africa, Sicily, and Normandy. The Army deliberately sought justifications to delay, reassign, and doubt the capability of black soldiers to operate and maintain 34-ton Sherman tanks in battle. A 1925 War College study by the Army formally concluded that black soldiers lacked the intelligence, courage, and initiative required for armored combat. Though 2 decades old by 1944, that document continued to influence policy. The soldiers of the 761st were fully aware of this situation. Sergeant Horace Evans, a Georgian gunner, later recounted that they trained knowing the Army sought pretexts to exclude them. They offered no such pretexts. General Patton specifically requested the 761st in October 1944, needing armor quickly. He accepted the Black Panthers, not out of racial principle, but as a commander requiring battle-ready units. Subsequent events introduced complexity to that straightforward assessment. The Nancy incident was not an isolated event. It represented the visible manifestation of a systemic problem. This issue was pervasive and damaging across the European theater, affecting black soldiers irrespective of rank. They consistently reported a pattern where white enlisted personnel occasionally defied orders from black non-commissioned officers. White officers sometimes failed to return salutes from black commissioned officers. A U.S. military salute isn't a personal gesture of affection. It's a mandatory, formal rank acknowledgement. Mandated by the Uniform Code of Military Justice, refusal wasn't just discourtesy. It was insubordination. But in the segregated Army, code enforcement was inconsistent, often amounting to selective blindness. Offenses against black officers often went unreported, quietly tolerated, or dismissed with unacceptable explanations. Had the roles been reversed, black officers received a clear psychological message. Your rank is conditional. Your commission is only on paper. In 1944's Mud and Cold, we practically decide its recognition. This created a distinct military problem, beyond the moral one. An unsaluted officer loses more than formality. He loses authority, which is everything in combat. It's the difference between a command followed in 3 seconds or 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, men can die. Patton understood this with engineering clarity. The Army relied on discipline and hierarchy. Undermine either, and you'd lack a fighting force. You'd have an armed mob on a payroll. The incident Patton encountered near Nancy. This wasn't an isolated act by a lone soldier. Instead, it was a systemic breakdown, manifesting in one clear instance, which Patton addressed. Patton tackled every military issue head-on, vocally and without delay. The white lieutenant who withheld the salute lacked combat experience. He served as a rear echelon officer, handling supply manifests and coordinating with quartermasters. He hadn't faced artillery fire. He hadn't witnessed a comrade perish in a burning tank. He had, nevertheless, internalized the cultural norms of the segregated military. These beliefs led him to consider saluting a black officer as demeaning, optional, or a personal choice. Patton moved towards him. The precise wording of their exchange differs in various accounts. While the Third Army didn't record events that morning, numerous witnesses, both black and white enlisted personnel present or nearby, later recounted the incident with essential consistency. Patton halted his vehicle. He exited the vehicle. He proceeded straight to the white officer. He sought no explanation. He commanded the lieutenant to render a salute. Then, before all present, the officer saluted Patton. Patton then reportedly faced the black lieutenant and returned the salute personally, thereby providing the formal recognition mandated by the Army, which the other officer had denied. He sharply rebuked the white lieutenant, in words soldiers remembered for decades. The exact words spoken have been reconstructed. Accounts varied, but the core message was consistent. Rank is rank. Skin color above the collar doesn't change one's standing. Insubordination is insubordination, regardless of the target. The Third Army would uphold its uniform code. Patton then re-entered his Jeep and departed. This episode's significance isn't the confrontation's drama. It's the speed and clarity. Patton gathered no evidence, nor held a review. He spotted a military discipline violation and corrected it, exercising his 4-star authority, instantly and publicly. Every soldier who witnessed or heard it received a message no memo could deliver with such force. In this army, rank truly means rank. The 761st Tank Battalion began operations November 2, 1944. Attacked to the 26th Infantry Division near Morval-le-Vic, France. They fought through the Sarbassin, Siegfried Line, and the relief of Bastogne. Sergeant Reuben Rivers, an Oklahoman tank commander with the 761st. On November 19th, near Gebling, he advanced his company despite a severe leg injury. Declining evacuation, he continued to engage in combat. His tank sustained a hit on November 19th. He lost his life. The Medal of Honor was proposed for Reuben Rivers. The Army in 1944 categorized the recommendation and moved it through bureaucratic processes intended to yield no results. They chose not to bestow it. He would await it for 53 years until 1997. In 1997, President Clinton awarded the Medal of Honor to Rivers' sister, alongside other African-American veterans. Their acknowledgement had been postponed for many decades. A study commissioned by the Army itself, finished in 1993 under congressional directive, determined racial bias was the cause. While the salute incident near Nancy was minor, Reuben Rivers' narrative provides the broader significance. A single individual disregarded a uniform regulation, and a general refused to overlook it within an institution that would take 5 decades to recognize its debt to those it sent to their deaths. The surprising core truth of this account isn't that Patton held progressive racial views. Indeed, his racial history was complex, inconsistent, and in certain aspects, indefensible. The Nancy incident's importance stems precisely from its non-ideological nature. Patton upheld military order due to military imperatives. By acting thus, he provided what ideology had consistently failed to achieve: a tangible, instant, public display showing that rank pertained to all who wore it. Those who saw or learned of it grasped the lesson. Its rarity caused it to spread. It gained traction because, within a segregated military, the impartial enforcement of the code across racial lines was sufficiently unusual to be noteworthy. The very fact that a four-star general was required to achieve this outcome served as an indictment of the system he operated within. The full magnitude of Patton's actions became more apparent in the ensuing weeks and months. The 761st maintained its combat operations. By December of 1944, they were involved in the effort to relieve the 101st Airborne. They were present in Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge. Bastogne had been surrounded by the German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army. On December 19, 1944, the 101st held their position. Ammunition supplies were dwindling. Wounded personnel were housed in unheated structures. Only a single road provided access in and out. The Germans were attempting to seal it off permanently. Patton's Third Army initiated its renowned 90-degree rotation. This event transpired on December 20th. The wintertime deployment of 4 divisions across dark, ice-covered roads represents one of the most challenging logistical accomplishments of the entire conflict. Military staff personnel, who had dedicated their careers to planning operations, later stated, "It should have been impossible." It was completed within 72 hours. The 761st Tank Battalion formed a component of that forward movement. They battled on to the end. They persisted through the Ardennes forest. Temperatures plunged below 0 Fahrenheit. Their Shermans lost tracks on the ice. They repaired them outdoors without cover or warmth, then rejoined the line. By December 26th, Third Army units broke through to Bastogne. The siege was lifted. The men inside had held out for 7 days. Captured German commanders, later debriefed by American intelligence, invariably cited Patton's relief column's speed as the most shocking element. Major General Heinz Koch, who commanded the 26th Volksgrenadier Division at Bastogne, noted in his post-war analysis, he hadn't anticipated an American armored force arriving from the south so quickly. His operational assumptions included a reasonable estimate of American logistical limits. Those assumptions were incorrect by about 48 hours. The 761st helped disprove those assumptions. They advanced through sectors where German commanders expected delays. They pressed on, fulfilling their duty as soldiers despite prohibitive conditions. This occurred in a war where their own army had long doubted their capabilities. Private First Class Warren Creasy of the 761st, known as the baddest man in the army, fought through the Ardennes in December with legendary ferocity. His crew destroyed machine gun nests, anti-tank guns, and infantry concentrations. Wounded, he remained in his tank. His actions in multiple Bulge engagements were later cited for the unit's Presidential Unit Citation. The citation was awarded in 1978, 33 years after the war. The pattern persisted. Recognition arrived late. The fighting had been completed on schedule. In January 1945, as the Bulge collapsed and German forces withdrew, the 761st breached the Siegfried Line, navigating pillbox complexes, fortified villages, and terrain designed to stop their armored assault. They broke through. By May 1945, the war's end, the 761st had fought for 183 consecutive days. They lost 36 men killed in action and suffered over 200 total casualties. They destroyed or disabled over 30 enemy tanks, 163 machine gun positions, and assisted in capturing 30 towns. Evidence of Patton's actions near Nancy is not found in his incomplete personal papers. It is found in the testimony of his men, and the 761st's subsequent record. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Bates, the 761st Tank Battalion's white commanding officer, stated decades later that his men fought with immense determination. They fought not only Germans, but also all who doubted their capabilities. Bates contended that this motivational boost generated tactical aggression, surpassing what mere training could achieve. Those with a point to make engage in combat, distinctively compared to those with nothing to demonstrate. William McBurney, a staff sergeant and 761st Tank Commander, recounted how Patton's speech impacted the battalion prior to their November 1944 combat entry. Patton stated their race was irrelevant. Their fighting capability was his sole concern. McBurney noted that statement resonated uniquely with men accustomed to years of being judged solely by their skin color. Quantitative data corroborates the anecdotal evidence. The 761st's kill ratios, advance speed, and sustained operational capacity under constant engagement all compared favorably to similar white units. The Army's own post-war analysis, despite reluctance regarding its findings, confirmed that black armored units in Europe performed at or above the level of comparable white units under similar conditions. German evaluation proved more straightforward. January 1945 interrogation reports from captured German officers in the Ardennes made no mention of the American unit's racial composition. Instead, these reports highlighted their firepower, swiftness, and readiness to advance amidst enemy fire. To the German military, Americans represented the adversary. This foe demonstrated effectiveness. Their effectiveness was their sole concern. This should have been the only consideration for the American side as well. George Patton wasn't a good man in the common understanding of that term. In Sicily, he struck a hospitalized serviceman. His racial remarks mirrored the biases prevalent in his social class and time. Vain, vulgar, and challenging to manage, he presented difficulties. Eisenhower almost dismissed him on 2 occasions. Patton clearly grasped a fundamental truth. An army functions as a machine, operating by its true design, not its theoretical one. In 1944, the U.S. Army's theoretical structure dictated equality for all soldiers under the Uniform Code. However, its practical operation revealed a different reality. When these two concepts clashed on a muddy road near Nancy, Patton upheld the theoretical design, enforcing it forcefully with his personal authority. His actions weren't driven by personal transformation, nor did he act due to historical contemplation. He acted because a soldier failed to salute an officer, violating regulations. Patton was a strict enforcer of rules. Regardless of his motive, men who believed their rank was conditional briefly learned that a 4-star general held a differing view. News of that incident spread throughout the Third Army. It spread because many observed it. Its rarity also contributed to its dissemination. In an authority-driven institution, the impartial exercise of power was sufficiently uncommon to become widely known. The 761st Tank Battalion was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation in 1978. Reuben Rivers earned the Medal of Honor in 1997. Warren Creasy's deeds have been repeatedly nominated for recognition, but full official acknowledgement remains pending. The combat operations concluded as planned. Acknowledgement came belatedly, and in some instances is still being granted. The historical principle revealed here is straightforward. While unsettling, it is not complex. Systems aren't self-correcting. Correction happens when those in authority prioritize enforcement over convenience. Patton once enforced rules on a cold morning for military reasons, a decision that significantly impacted men needing to witness its importance. An institution's fairness reflects its highest authority's readiness to act justly, even in minor situations, publicly and without prompting. This is the key takeaway. It's not exclusively a military teaching. This principle holds true wherever rank is present. Individuals then quietly decide whether to acknowledge it.